friends. Welcome back to our little cottage here on the river in the far north of Idaho. So in this video, I'm going to share with you pretty much the entire process of finally getting my garden expansion in, the fence up, and everything planted. And here you can see my husband is putting in the fence posts, and this was last week. And we spent a couple days, or 2 or 3 solid days working on this. And here he rented a large tiller to till up the soil because back in February when we started the process, someone came with their excavator and dug up some stumps and roots, and there were some bushes there, but there was still some grass, and the ground was still pretty compacted, and it really needed to be tilled up just to help with the process of improving the soil. So he rented a tiller, and I went and picked up 20 bags of steer manure, and he tilled the manure into that soil just to start that process of improving the soil, which, over the course of the next couple years or so, I'll keep working on improving it. But anyway, it just kind of gave it a good start for this year. But unfortunately, the camera shut off for whatever the reason while he was doing the actual tilling. So I don't have any footage of him doing the actual tilling. But this tiller was nice and hefty, so it got the job done very quickly. And there you can see that we moved the chicken coop and got that out of the way so he could do the tilling. And here he's just getting the tiller back into the back of his truck to take it back to the rental place. And then here he's measuring for some boards that will go across the top of the fence posts, and that the fencing wire will be attached to, just to help keep it more secure. And then here he's screwing in some temporary boards across the very tops of the fence posts, and these are just simply to keep the posts in place while he's putting up the wire fencing. And he was concerned that with pulling the fencing tight, that it would cause the posts to kind of pull in towards each other. And so this was just to keep them really secure while he was doing the wire process. And then he will eventually remove these and they will no longer be there. And here my husband is building the gate for my garden, and I was not expecting anything fancy. I had a very basic picture in my mind of what the gate would be, but he wanted me to have a really nice garden gate. And so he went and picked up some cedar fence boards and made me an absolutely beautiful garden gate. And then here we are moving the chicken coop into its final spot. And originally we had planned on building a new chicken coop this year, but with all of the other home projects that we currently have going on that are a much bigger priority, we decided to go ahead and hold off on that until next year. So my husband just kind of threw a few little screws in here and there wherever something needed to be a little bit sturdier, and we'll be able to get at least one more year out of this little chicken coop. But we will definitely have to build a new coop this next year. This one will not last another 2 years, I don't think. And then, of course, the next morning, it was time for me to get out there and start working on the garden beds. And so here my husband's helping me put up a little arch with some of the extra fencing that we had. And this is where my cucumbers are going to grow. And I did end up putting in a second arch as well. But I'm growing a smaller, bushy pickling cucumber. So the plant doesn't spread out as much as a regular cucumber plant. And so it will grow up these little arches beautifully. And so I just spent the morning out there getting the beds ready. My dad came up for a little visit, and he came out in the garden and chatted with me while I was working, and he even helped me spread out some pine shavings in between the garden beds. And the main thing with the pine shavings was just to keep the mud down when I'm watering the garden, just so the paths don't get as muddy. Also, I like it because it defines each of the beds, so you can really see where each one is, and it just feels kind of a little bit more neat and tidy to me. So yeah, I spent the morning and then the rest of the afternoon out there getting all of the garden beds ready. And here you can see the chicken coop, and then the space between it and the garden fence is going to be the new chicken run. So eventually, or very soon, we'll put up some chicken wire there and make a nice little run for the chickens. And then here you can see the beautiful garden gate that my husband built for me. And here is the garden all planted and ready to go. And so here you can see these 3 stakes in the ground. That is where my beans are growing. And I will be putting some twine. I'll be stringing some twine up and weaving that in between those posts for the beans to grow up. And then in that middle bed are carrots and beets. And then here are my little cucumber plants, and they're doing great outside. And then at the other end of this little bed, I'm going to plant my fennel. And then in the pots here, there was a huge stump. I don't know if you remember from past videos, there was a massive stump that they could not get out. And so I put these little rocks around it and put these pots on it. But these are my herbs, so it's rosemary and thyme. And then I'm waiting for my basil seeds to start popping up. And then here are my tomato plants, and the little red cups are just marking which is which until I can actually make some little markers for those tomatoes. And then I also planted my zucchinis. And then these 3 beds here are where I planted my onions and my shallots, if you remember from past videos. And then here are my jalapenos. And then I also have some lettuce growing and some lettuce seedlings coming up. And this little area here was my original garden, if you remember. And yeah, now it is one massive garden. So I've also got some flowers planted and some radishes. So now we just wait for things to really take off and start growing. But anyway, very excited for that garden and for it to finally be done and for me to have things planted. And yeah, very, very exciting. So here I am going to share with you my recipe for some berry crumble bars. And I had so much fun creating this recipe, and it is absolutely delicious, if I do say so myself. I always find it hard to be like, oh my goodness, you guys need to try this recipe because it's so good when it's one that I created. But yeah, this one is delicious, and I had so many people absolutely love it. I took it to the women's Bible study that I help lead on Monday nights, and it was a huge hit. So I would say you definitely need to give this recipe a try. I think it makes a great dessert for summertime. But I will also have the full recipe over on my blog, homespunannie.com, and I will also have it linked in the description box below. So in a large mixing bowl, you're going to want to add 2 cups of all-purpose flour and 1 cup of almond flour and half a teaspoon of salt, and you'll whisk that all together. And then you're going to melt 1 cup or 2 sticks of unsalted butter, melt them completely, and then you're going to add a couple teaspoons of vanilla extract to that and whisk that together. And then you're going to add this to the dry mixture and start mixing that together. And I just mix that together with the whisk until it just starts to come together, and then I will start using my hands. And I find using my hands is just a little bit easier. This is going to be, part of this is going to be the cookie base for the bars, and then it's also going to be the crumble for the top of the bars. So yeah, so you'll just mix it together with your hands, and it will look like this. It will be a nice crumble consistency. And then you're going to take a 9x13 baking dish, and you're going to line it with parchment paper. And even if you use a non-stick baking dish, you're still going to want to use the parchment paper with a bit of overhang on the sides, because this is going to help you get the bars out of the pan. So yeah, highly recommend using the parchment paper. And then you're going to take about 2/3 of this cookie crumble mixture, and you're going to press it into the pan and just press, a nice even layer into the bottom of the baking dish. And also, while this is going on, you're going to want to have your oven preheating at 375 degrees. And then for the berry filling, you're going to want 4 cups of mixed berries, and they can be fresh or frozen. It doesn't matter. So I'm using frozen here, and it's a mixture of blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries. Of course, you could use one kind of berry if you wanted. You don't have to use a mix, but I have to say the mixed berries just really, I don't know, it's very delicious having the mixed berries in this recipe. So anyway, 4 cups of mixed berries, and then here I'm adding the zest of 1 whole lemon, and I'm also going to take this same lemon and add the juice of the lemon to the mixture as well. And also to this, I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of sugar and then 1/2 cup of flour and get this all mixed up really well. And the flour is so that the juices of the berries thicken during the baking process. If you don't add the flour, then the juices will probably be a lot more runny and they won't hold together as well. So you definitely need to add the flour to the berry mixture. And even if you're using fresh or frozen berries, the bake time is going to be exactly the same. So nothing changes based on if you're using fresh or frozen berries. And then you're going to add this mixture and just pour it over the top of the cookie base and get it spread out evenly. And then you're going to take the rest of the cookie crumble dough that you have and you're going to crumble it over the top of the berries. And then you will put this in the preheated oven to bake for about 45 minutes. And once the crumble topping starts to turn a lovely golden brown, then you know that it's done. So you'll just keep an eye on it. And you will take the entire pan and place it on a wire rack to start the cooling process. And after about 20 minutes, you will use the parchment paper to lift the bars out of the pan and directly onto the cookie sheet, where you'll let them cool completely before you cut them into bars. And then of course you can cut them into whatever size bars that you would like. And they can be stored in an airtight container. And then I recommend serving them with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, although they are just as wonderful on their own as is as well. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, share with someone else you think would enjoy it, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.